All right, good evening. We are so happy to have you guys all here for tonight's mentorship call. Tonight we have now former Florida Gator, Korbe Otis, here with us tonight. So Korbe is originally from Colorado, and she just finished her playing career at Florida, where she played left field. Graduated from Florida with a bachelor's in biology. So her and I had a little bit of a nerdy biology talk before you guys all got on here, but she is now getting ready to go to med school. She spent this last summer, though. She was drafted by the Blaze for Athletes Unlimited, played this summer with the Blaze, had a great season. Um, Something that was really cool that I didn't know, that you won the NCAA Elite 90 Award, which is an award given to the highest GPA of a player at a championship site, right? So that was for the World Series.
Yes, yep.
So you had a 4.0.
Yes, yeah.
Just a 4.0. That's it. While playing softball. So that's super, super awesome. So she is a true student athlete at Florida, really working hard in the school as well as on the field. So we're super pumped to have Korbe here with us tonight. So I'll go ahead and throw it to you. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we can chat from there.
Yeah, sounds great. So yeah, like she said, I'm Korbe Otis. Originally from Colorado. Throughout my softball journey, I've played all different positions, everywhere under the sun. I was a catcher for a brief moment. I played middle infield and pitched. I pitched up until my junior year of high school. And then once I was told that I couldn't go to Wednesday night fielding lessons, I was moved to the outfield. So my softball journey has taken me all over the country. I've probably flown way too many flights and got way too much radiation from that, but still here, still standing. My softball journey started in Colorado, so I started when I was 8 years old. I've now played softball for almost 15 years now. That's crazy. Um, so I have had tons and tons of coaches, tons and tons of experience with things. So I'd love for you guys to ask any questions that you get to or want to ask when we get there. But started in Colorado. Colorado, if you're not familiar, gets a lot of snow. So we're a cold weather state, and we're known more for our soccer players that come out of there because there's more indoor facilities to support their sport. We really didn't have any resources like that when I was growing up, at least. So for a good portion of the year, we were not able to practice outside and do those things. We ended up building a batting cage in my basement to kind of support my dream. I watched the 2015 College World Series where actually Florida won their second national championship against Michigan, and I was there in person and had all the great World Series treats like the corn. If you go, you should try it. But that was when I decided I wanted to play college softball and I wanted to be a Gator. And so my softball process took me to explore playing softball in a different state because I didn't have the resources that I needed in Colorado. So my dad took me on a plane to California almost every weekend to practice or play for 6 years. So, like I said, a lot of flights, a lot of frequent flyer miles. But that was probably the best thing I could have done for my softball career because I was investing in my college future, I was investing in my softball IQ, and I was putting myself in a position to get recruited, which at the time, our recruiting rules were a lot different than they are for you guys now. I committed to the University of Louisville as an eighth grader, which is unheard of now because you can't talk to anybody till your junior year of high school, which is honestly how it should be. When you're in eighth grade, you don't know what you want to major in, you don't know probably what you want for breakfast the following week, let alone anything you want to do in your college career or get out of your college experience. So I committed when I was in the eighth grade. It was commit early or don't commit at all. So I did. And went to the University of Louisville for 2 years, and I just felt that where I was in the 2 years that I had left in my career, I was not gonna reach the goals that I would hatched for myself when I was just a little girl watching the Women's College World Series. So I entered the transfer portal, decided to bet on myself, and ended up at Florida, and just absolutely loved my time at Florida. for sure found my home. And it definitely was a full circle moment being able to play at the World Series on the team that I watched in my first World Series that I went to, and that hatched those dreams for me to play in college. So then I got drafted to play in Athletes Unlimited this year for the Blaze, and that was pretty surreal. I had never thought that I would play professional softball because we didn't have that platform when I was a kid growing up. We didn't really have any teams on television besides the World Series. So that was what we had, and now it's an absolute honor to be able to pave the way for you guys and the next generation to be able to not only play softball professionally, but to advance that platform to be able to make a living wage playing softball and be able to just live your life playing softball for as long as you want to. So that's kind of my story as it sounds.
That is so awesome. Yeah, that's talk about dedication every weekend.
Yes.
California, huh? What team were you playing for in California?
So for 2 years, I played for the Orange County Batbusters, and then I switched to play for the Corona Angels my last 4 years for Marty Tyson.
That's awesome. What do you feel like? So as you transitioned from high school to then college at Louisville, what do you feel like was the biggest change for you, or what was the thing that you struggled with the most trying to make that transition?
Yeah, I think honestly it's the practice. I was very, very used to, as a lot of young travel ball players are used to, only meeting up with your team on the weekends to practice. And that was what we did. We practiced for a while on the weekends. We practiced 4 hours I would practice with the 14U team, and then additionally I would stay and practice with the 18U team. So I did 8 hours of practice Saturday and Sunday. But for college, you're with your team every single day. You're with your coaches every single day. You're with your team every single day. And the difference was during the week in travel ball, I could tune up anything I needed to, make adjustments, changes, work on stuff to go the following weekend. And then I could compete and perform at practice because practice is really where you earn your starting spot. In college, that's different. There's no hiding from your struggles. There's no hiding from a slump. There's no hiding through working through something. You are with your teammates 24/7, pretty much, and with your coaches. So they're going to see you at practice when you have inevitably one of those days where it's just the ball looks like a peanut and you can't see it for anything, and maybe there's a ton of holes on the field, the ball's not going in your glove. Those are the days that, we all have in softball, and it's okay to have those. It's how you come back from them and make adjustments. Even All Americans have those days. I've had more days of those than I can count. But it's how you come back from them and how you compete with what you have, 100% of what you have every single day. So that was the biggest thing for me. Practice was definitely different. So it was just a little uncomfortable at first because you were with everybody all the time. There was not a single person on that field that I didn't know if they were struggling or they didn't know if I was struggling. So dealing with that and being able to work through that on top of trying to get your own personal schedule aligned, finding time to study, eat, do laundry, go to the grocery store. All of those things are going to be things that you're doing for the first time in college. So,
Yeah, it's definitely a step up. It's a big change for a lot of people.
mhm.
When were you first, do you feel like exposed to like the idea of like mental skills or so we teach mental skills as a way to like failure recovery or breathing techniques or grounding techniques. When were you first exposed to this idea of like you can learn these skills that will help you through some of these hard times? Did you
Yeah.
do that at Florida or before that?
No, no, definitely before that. So,
Mhm.
my dad being the student of everything of life as he is, figured out very soon that softball was unlike other sports in that softball is a game of failure. So, from a very early age, probably 10 years old, he started me on some form of mental training. I didn't really think it was worth it. I didn't want to put my time into it. I didn't want to listen to this guy on his podcast drone on about how to use tools and stoplights and all the things. I just wasn't into it. Um, but he really tried, and it wasn't until my sophomore year of high school that I really decided like I need to make a change. I think that's one of the things about the mental game that is such a shame, especially in youth sports, is because players don't feel like they need it until they really need it. When you're in a slump for, part of the summer and nothing's working, even if you do your hair differently or whatever, that's kind of when you decide, okay, I need something else because obviously the physical isn't working. So my sophomore year of high school, I didn't have a good year. I didn't come off of a good summer, and obviously my parents are paying tons of money to be able to take me to California every weekend and do those things. And it was a conversation to be had that, what you aren't performing, like, what's the difference? Like, we need to figure this out, or else we're wasting our money going out there. Um, so I was fortunate enough to work with Tom Hansen, who's the co-author of Heads Up Baseball and Heads Up Baseball 2.0 with Ken Rabiza, who I also got to work with before he passed. But just being able to, understand how I work as a person. I want to do things as fast as possible, as correct as possible. And in a sport of failure, perfectionism is not attainable, even though you can work towards it and shoot for the stars and end up among the greats. But perfection, it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't something that I could lay my head at night and be like, I had a perfect practice today. So I had to come to reality with that. And I also had to figure out how to deal with failure, not just to brush it off and forget about it and have a short memory, but like, how do you look failure in the face and ask yourself, okay, where did I go wrong? And then additionally, take accountability for it and make a plan to be different moving forward and improve. So that was kind of a big change for me. I was like, okay. Then my dad obviously was like, I told you so. But at some point you have to get it, and it has to be unfortunately most of the time for athletes it's when nothing else works, which I think is such a mistake because as soon as I figured out the mental game and started using my mental toolbox to help me in game, in practice, my softball IQ and my consistency and my confidence just skyrocketed. So, unfortunately, I guess better fortunately, I got it before college, but long after my dad had wanted me to learn it. So,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think that's the best thing that we can do for athletes in general is to make this a preventative measure as opposed
sure,
to just like you want to try and prevent going through these deep. I mean, you're still going to have slumps and stuff like that, but if you
sure.
already have the skills to face those slumps and understand how to mentally work through those things, it's so much easier. It's so much. It helps the girls and the athletes to really understand that there's nothing wrong with you.
Yep.
It's let me just like if you were struggling with your form and a grounder, I'm going to teach you your form in your mind as well. and
Yep.
and so yeah, if we could shift that stigma and make it more of like this is what everybody needs, let's prevent going through these deep slumps, let's prevent going through these deep mental anguish that we
Sure.
sometimes
And
have
I
as
mean,
athletes.
a lot of athletes, like college athletes, as soon as you get better and better and better as youth athletes, especially like you're in the weight room a lot, you're training your body, trying to get stronger, trying to get faster, trying to have more power, to be able to translate that to the game. Well, what are you
Hmm.
doing for your mental game to do that? That's your physical game.
Right.
What are you doing in your mental game to put you in a best position to perform?
Yeah. I think one of the most surprising things to me as I worked my way up in levels of sport was how the higher up you go in sport, the more time you spend in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like
100%.
at the lower levels, you're doing no film study, you're doing no goal setting, you're doing no classroom work. And then as you get up in the upper levels, all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm spending a lot of time in the classroom learning about my sport as
Yep.
opposed to just on the field. There's just so much more to it. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, I'll ask you one last question, then we'll open it up to the girls. But um, my big question, and one of the reasons I really wanted to reach out to you, have you come to do this, was when I was watching you in the World Series. The announcers were talking about how you were graduating from Florida and about to, head off into med school and had this whole career laid in front of you as a doctor, which I just thought was so awesome. That here you are, an athlete, at the peak of your game, at the peak of your career, and you're about to like now step forward into a whole nother life, right? And for those of us who were former athletes and now have fully stepped through that door where that athlete time seems like a different life, like
Mm-hmm.
um, I know I'm grateful for the things that sport taught me that are still helping me and blessing my life today. So I was wondering if you could share with us, like, how do you feel? What do you feel like you'll take from? Obviously, you're still playing, but what do you feel like you'll take from softball? What has softball taught you and brought to you that you now get to move forward and take with you into your future career as a doctor into medicine?
Yeah, oh my gosh, I have been writing about that way too much recently. And I mean, I'll tell you the same thing that I write in my applications is like softball has taught me way more than 1,000 or 200 words or 500 words could ever contain. Um, Throughout my career, I have faced so much adversity. So if it's not, let alone all the other lessons, I have learned how to work through failure, how to deal with frustrations, how to set a goal plan for yourself, how to bet on yourself. It's so many things just working through adversity. When I was 10 years old and wanting to go play in college and play in the Olympics and do all these things. My coach at the time was also telling me that I would never make a high school team, let alone play for a college program. And, as a young athlete, that's like really deflating for you and disheartening. And so I had sat with it for some time and had finally told my dad about that conversation. And it was like, okay, well, are you going to be discouraged by that? Are you going to let that make you quit? Or are you going to plan your goals out and do something about it? So, I mean, that night we sat down and made this huge goal plan and started from my biggest dreams of playing in college and playing for the Olympics. And then worked backwards with milestones like, okay, you have to get recruited to a college, you have to be one of the top players on your travel team, you have to do this, this, and this, until I had something every single day that I was working towards to put myself on a path to be able to achieve my goals down the road. And that in itself, like, nobody teaches you how to do that. Nobody's going to teach you how to do that, and you go unless you go pay thousands of dollars for a goal planning, a life coach, right? But softball taught me that. Softball taught me how to pick myself off the floor when I don't feel like doing anything because I had the worst game of my life and it was the worst thing because there's perspective, right? Softball taught me to have perspective the worst thing in the world for me was that I struck out looking 3 times in a game. Well, there's also people that night that don't know where their next meal is going to come from, don't have a roof over their head, things like that. So, softball taught me perspective. Softball taught me how to deal with failures and that you can't avoid failure. And if you just try to forget about it, the same thing is going to keep happening. What you forget, you omit, right? So, if you just learn to forget about failure and flush it, which is important, right? To flush it when you're done with it. But if you don't look at it and say, okay, why did I fail? How can I be better there? Make a plan to move forward. Your career is going to be stagnant. And I think that a lot of young players don't quite get that part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's the beauty of sport, right? We get to learn all of these life lessons that are just gonna, if we do it right and if we approach the game right in the right way, then those things that we learn playing a little sport with a ball that doesn't really matter, right? We can then take those real life skills that we're learning and practicing and take them out into our real lives and it'll
100%.
help you. It'll help you for the rest of your life in so many different ways. I think that's awesome. All right, girls, I'm going to open it up to you guys. Anybody have questions for Corby? I keep saying Corby. Um, you can either unmute or you can send it to oh, Sophia's already got her hand up. Go ahead, Sophia.
We saw you play when we were in Rosemont for AUSL. I was wondering what your favorite AUSL like moment was.
Oh yeah, they asked us this. My favorite moment for like the regular season was when Kaylee Harding hit the 2-run home run to go up on the Bandits. I think that says something about her character and also like just in general. Even if you find yourself on playing a bench role and playing the role of a pinch hitter, like when you can stay ready like that and being intentional with your practices, being intentful with what you're watching during the game, that in itself is a skill. That in itself is one of the hardest skills to learn from softball. But that in itself is an invaluable skill if you can learn it. So that was a really, really special moment for us and for her. And so I think that would have to be my favorite moment.
Awesome. Andy, you had your hand up.
How did you choose your number?
Yeah, so my birthday is 030303, so I just kind of considered 3 a lucky number and went with it. So,
That's a cool birthday.
yeah.
30303. That's awesome. Chloe,
What was your favorite memory of your like first times playing softball?
Of my first times playing softball. I would say so when I first started playing rec ball or softball, I was playing rec ball. And when I was on, I think my team is called the Bulldogs. And when I was on that team, you could do it was coach pitch, or if you didn't hit the ball within like 4 pitches in coach pitch, then you had to hit off the tee. I never had to hit off the tee, so I was like known as one of the hitters that like never had to hit off the tee, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. I don't know why.
that's awesome. Gretchen,
I'm a 2029 grad. What is your best advice for how to stand out in the recruiting process?
Yeah, so this is common. This is like one of the most common questions that we get at camps, that I get in my mentoring sessions with my kids during the week. So the best advice that I can give you is when college coaches look at you, they look at a few things, but first and foremost, they're going to look at, okay, are you good at softball, right? Are you good at softball, and what makes you a valuable member to my team, right? So you don't have to be a home run hitter. You don't have to be, a pitcher that throws 75 with a rise ball that has 20 inches of break, right? Like that's not everybody's story. And those recruiting stories are rare. And so most people don't have something in their statistics that just makes them stand out like that, right? So, what are you good at, right? A lot of people will be like, okay, I can play catcher, shortstop, second base, third base, first base, and I'm the center fielder on the team when I'm not doing all that, right? Which is good. Diversity is really good, but college coaches want to say, okay, how can you impact my team? What are you best at? So I would ask yourself, what are you best at? As a player. And then also just make sure your intangibles are in check and your grades are in check. That's what I always tell my kids. You don't want a door to your dream school to be shut because your grades aren't good enough. So make sure you're still being a student and your student athlete. And then your intangibles matter too, right? Like how you treat your teammates matters. What you do after you fail in a game matters. College coaches look at that and they're going to ask your travel coach about that. So, the best advice I can give you from your recruiting journey as a whole, I would say make non-negotiables. Make non-negotiables in your recruiting process, whether it's I want to go close to home, I want to go far away from home, I need this major, and I want to graduate in 4 years. I want to be able to do softball and do these 3 other things. I want to be an All-American. I want to win a national championship, whatever it is. Find your non-negotiables in a school and then be able to pick from that crop of schools that contacts you on September 21st, or I'm sorry, September 1st, and say, okay, this school checks my box. They have a really good hitting coach. They have a really good education, and they have a really good softball program. Perfect. That's what I want. They check all my boxes. Man, the school has a really good feel, and maybe I like the colors of the uniform and where I'm gonna go, but that doesn't have my non-negotiables, so they gotta come out of it, right? That would be my best advice going through the recruiting process twice now. That's what I did the second time, and I felt like my process was a lot easier. And even if I got a good feel from somewhere, I made sure that I got what I wanted out of the school as well.
I like that. Making sure you're one half of the recruiting process, making
Yeah.
sure that you stand up for that one half for sure.
Hmm.
I think Sophia was next with the second question.
When you played at Florida, did you get to meet and play with Skylar Wallace?
I did. Yes, I love Skylar.
Awesome. Andy had a second question as well.
Who were you closest with on the Gators?
Who was I closest with? I was closest with a lot of my teammates, but probably my roommates, Jossie, and then Keegan Rothrock, who's like my best friend.
Fun. Those friendships last forever too.
They
Really
do.
fun. Chloe,
What was your reaction whenever you got selected to play for the Blaze?
Yeah, it just felt really surreal. I had my family there that weekend. I had just hit, it was kind of a crazy moment. There were a lot of emotions. I had just hit the walk-off hit to win the series against Alabama, and we all celebrated that. And then had to stay on the field and saw the announcement and heard my name called, and I was in disbelief. I didn't even feel like it was a real moment. It was just that cool, and there were so many emotions. My dad was there watching, so. It couldn't have been like a more perfect moment, I don't think.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you had no idea that like the golden ticket thing was real. It was just like
It
we're just
was
gonna pop out.
at the time I think I was like the third or fourth ticket, so like it was kind of a thing, but like
Uh-huh.
wasn't super like guaranteed like I don't know. I knew about it, I knew of it, but I would have never thought that I would have ever got it, let alone it came to Florida. So I don't know. It was just a very surreal process.
That's awesome. Addie.
How did you know, like, when you were like serious about softball, like this is like what I want to do?
Yeah, so kind of like I said, I was watching the 2015 World Series, and I was in person. And if you get to go, it's an amazing experience. There's nothing else like it. But I was sitting there and I was watching some of the best softball athletes compete for their dreams and compete to do what I wanted to do. And I had just decided, okay, I want to be one of those players on that field. I want to be the last one standing at the World Series. I want to be an All-American. I want to do these things. So I want to do that, so I have to put in the work to do it. And that was kind of like when my mindset shifted. I didn't, I no longer thought of practice as a chore. I no longer had to have somebody get me up off the couch and say, "Okay, let's go hit," or "Why don't you go throw the ball around in the backyard," right? Like I was the one that was like pulling my dad off the couch to come catch me. I was the one that was, begging to go to California, begging to do hitting lessons, doing those things. It was kind of like I ran my own dreams from that point. So, I just kind of had a mindset shift in that point. So when you feel that, hitting is more important, it is something that you want to do because you enjoy the process and you enjoy getting better and you want to get better to become the best player you can be, like that's kind of how you know you're serious.
Yeah. You're willing to do what it takes.
Exactly.
That's a lot of people want those cool things. I mean, I would want to win a World Series. Like, who wouldn't want that? But you have to be willing to do what it takes to get there for that to be a possibility. Yeah, it's great advice. Chloe.
What's your favorite food?
My favorite food, I would say I really like chicken fried rice.
Very nice. Sophia?
What's your pregame and after game routine?
Okay, yeah, it's a great question. So pregame, I'm a person that I really enjoy to do my homework, if you couldn't tell. But part of that for me is film study. So film study on myself, film study on the other team's pitchers, kind of reviewing that scout in my head, going through whatever I'm going to do at the plate. So like I know this pitcher has this, this, and this. I know I have these strengths, so I'm going to do this, this, and this to try and beat her, right? That was kind of my game planning approach. And then obviously, like a big part of that is like, okay, I need to eat a meal before a game. And then I just kind of, depending on the day, I would always listen to music. And then depending on the day, like if I needed to kind of calm my nerves a little bit, I would listen to like slower music. And if I maybe it was a day I felt tired or something, I would kind of amp myself up with that. But music was always a part of my routine. And then I always made sure to do like my mobility and stuff before the games, just so I felt good and I felt in my routine. After the game, I would go through my at bats in my head, and on my paper, I would keep a notebook of my at bats, and I would go through my at bats, say, okay, what went wrong or what did I do really well here? Especially in a series, you're going to see those pitchers again. You're going to see that team again somewhere down the road. So just knowing, okay, I did this, she attacked me this way, it's kind of like a chess game a little bit. There's strategy to everything, and really, it's kind of a game of chance in that point if you're playing it like that. So just giving myself the best opportunity to go compete, that was kind of my routine.
Awesome. Approaching it like a student. That's like really
Yeah.
very academic, right? Like break it down, write it down, study
For
it.
sure.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Well, we are right at 8:30, so we want to be respectful of your time. But thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. That was so awesome. I'm going to ask you one final question before we finish. This is the question we ask everybody that comes. And it is, if you were a time traveler and could go back and tell your former self, let's maybe little 12-year-old or 13-year-old, what advice would you give yourself? What would you tell yourself?
Yeah. Well, for one, I would say, well, figure out your mental game a lot sooner,
Yeah.
and actually believe that it works. So I would say that first and foremost. And then I would say too, just to always bet on myself. There were a lot of people in my career that had told me it wasn't going to work. I was undersized. I wasn't strong enough, wasn't good enough. So I would tell me to always bet on myself, and prove those people wrong because I had the work ethic and I had the talent and I had the will to do it. There were definitely times though that like that's discouraging. That's really discouraging, and for some athletes, unfortunately, that cuts their career short. But I would tell myself to bet on myself every day of the week.
That's great. Such good advice. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, and thank you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to do it.